This is Lesson 6-1, Reteaching. The objective for this lesson is to mentally multiply decimals by 10, 100, and 1,000. We're going to start this lesson off with a word problem. Andrew starts selling his baseball cards for 10 cents each. How much money will he make from selling 10 cards, 100 cards, and 1,000 cards? So down below we have kind of a visual representation of dimes, pretty much. On the far left, you see the 1 dime, which is equal to 10 cents, or written as decimal form, 1/10, or 0.10. Well, let's think if we had 10 dimes, or if we sold 10 cards, how much would we have? How much money would Andrew make? So we could count these dimes in the middle column. We have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. We would have 100 cents if we had 10 dimes. And we know that 100 cents is going to be equal to $1. That's something we learned a long time ago when talking about money. 100 cents is going to be equal to $1. So if he sold 10 cards, he would have $1. Now, let's take a look at that last diagram on the far right. This is representing 10 groups of 10. So each of these little rows of dimes is representing 10 dimes or $1, which we just learned in the last diagram. So if we were to count this, we would have $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we would have $10 here, or 1,000 cents. Okay? So we're going to take a look at the pattern that we kind of can identify when multiplying by powers of 10. So here we have a representation of how much money Andrew is going to earn as he is selling his baseball cards. This first right here is showing you for each card, or for one card, he's going to earn 10 cents, or 1/10 of a dollar. Well, then once he's sold 10 cards, he's going to earn $1 whole, or 10 tenths, because he's going to have 10 dimes after that. So we want to kind of take a look at these two numbers and help use the pattern that we identified to help us solve how much money Andrew is going to have once he sold 100 cards. So take a look at these numbers here and the placement of the decimal. Notice that, keep in mind that this is 10 cents times and 10 cents times, okay? So take a look at where the decimal place is. When I have 10 cards being sold, my decimal place has moved over one place so that it's after the 1 instead of before it. Same holds true with the 100 cards. If we were to look at 10 cents times 100, we're going to take this decimal point again and move it over to the right one. So in that case, we would have $10. And this is matching what we found by counting the dimes on the last page. So we know we're on the right track. I also want to take a look, say from moving from the 1 card to the 100 cards. Say if this problem didn't ask us to find the 10, how much he would earn if he sold 10 cards. From going from 1 card, which was worth 10 cents, to 100 cards, which was worth $10, if I take this and I look at the zeros in the 100, I can see that I have 2, so I'm going to take my decimal point and I'm going to move it over 2 decimal places. This number now matches how much money Andrew would earn once he has sold 100 cards. So by looking at the zeros, the number of zeros, and the power of 10 that you're multiplying by, you can figure out how many times you need to move the decimal place over. So here we have all of the information that we found on the past couple of slides. And the nice thing about looking at it like this is that you can see the progression and the movement of the decimal point as this number has changed. So on the first one, selling 1 card, he earned 10 cents. Then we have moving the decimal over to show how much money he would have if he sold 10 cards. Then we move the decimal over to figure out how much he would sell or how much he would earn if he sold 100 cards. Now we're just going to continue our pattern and look at 1,000 cards. So we're going to take our 100 because we know we just have one more zero in 1,000 than we do in 100. And we're going to just move what we've been doing, move this decimal point over. So if he sold 1,000 baseball cards, he would have $100. Again, another way you could look at this jumping from one card to 1,000 cards is looking at the number of zeros in this number, because the 10 cents is how much we're multiplying by. So we're going to look at the zeros in the factor that is a multiple of 10. I have 3 zeros there. So if I have the number 10 cents or 1/10 times 1,000, I'm going to look at my zeros in my factor of 10, in this case 10 or 1,000, and I have 1, 2, 3 zeros. So I'm going to take that decimal point in my 1/10, and I'm going to move it over 1, 2, 3 times. And you may notice that that X is kind of in the last hump there. Well, we're going to add in a placeholder 0. So we're going to add in the 10 that we have, and then where that X is, that last hump, is where we're going to put the placeholder 0. So then, because we're talking about money, we're going to go ahead and add our decimal point in our cents places. So we would also get 100. So now I want to talk about this as if we were using whole numbers. So let's take a look at the number 17. And say we were to multiply that number by 10. Well, this is something that you should be really familiar with by now. When you're multiplying by multiples of 10 with whole numbers, we know that we just add a 0 onto the end. So in this case, it would be 170. I'm going to go ahead and put those two numbers into my place value chart that had a little bit of editing done to it. So if I put in my 17, I'm going to have a 1 in the tens place and a 7 in the ones place. Now, for 170, I'm going to have 1 in the hundreds place, 7 in the tens place, and a 0 in the ones place. So I want you to think about this. And let's go ahead and do 100 times 17 as well. Well, I'm going to just do 1 times 17, and then I have 2 zeros in this case. So I'm going to add 2 zeros onto the end. So now I have 1,700. No tens, no ones. So in whole numbers, our decimal is going to appear at the end of the number, because the number that is to the left of the decimal is going to be the whole number. The numbers that come to the right are going to be the parts or the partials. So 17 can also be written as 17.0. So I want you to take a look about what would happen if I move this over 1. Well, I would get 170, just like I did here. And if I took 170.0 and move that decimal place over 1, then I would get 1,700. It's the exact same process with decimals as it is with whole numbers, only with whole numbers we don't have to think about the decimal places because we know these are just fluff zeros and we don't have to write them. So the same thing is happening if, say, you had the number 1.7 or 1 and 7/10 instead of 17. When we multiply it by 10, we're taking that decimal and we're moving it over 1, so we get 17. Same process, you might just not realize it.